Welcome to my assassin endgame build, you backstabbing bastards. This build revolves around high dodge chance and a lot of burst damage next to Slayer's Flurry that in this case is good against single target enemies. Not much else to say, let's get into it. Attributes that we need are Ferocity, Toughness and Agility. Ferocity we need because of the attack critical chance score. As you know, Assassin passive tree has a node that increases critical damage by 100% but decreases overall normal damage by 30%. So we need crit chance as high as possible. Toughness is important because of the health, Force Shield not so much, but mainly because of the health. We're also gonna have some life leech through the attacks, and that is going to keep us alive, next to dodge rating, which should be at this level somewhere around 60%. Agility is important because of the attack speed score. Attack speed on its own, we don't really use it much except for Slayer's Flurry. This is good single target ability. It's not good usually, but with this build it is good. Another thing to note here is my freeze chance. I'm trying to have Frost as my primary damage because frozen enemies can't do anything and we can dish 25% additional damage to those enemies thanks to one of the passive skill tree nodes that I'm going to show you later. So try to have Frost as your primary damage. You'll know that Frost is your primary one if Phantom Blades and Slayer's Flurry have freeze chance instead of any other ailment type. Armor that I'm using is primarily Rogue, but you can use Bruiser as well, as long as there is dodge chance on each gear piece, armor gear piece that is. So that means gauntlets, spolders, helmet, chest piece, pants and boots. Next to that, slot in gems that provide boost to dodge chance score. Accessories should be steel rings because they increase critical hit damage, and if you can get critical chance increase on them, that would be wonderful. Weapons that I'm using are obviously dual daggers because that's what an assassin should be using. The most important thing here to note is that you should invest into gems that can increase your frost damage on attacks with this weapon. This is how frost damage becomes primary one. Stats that you should look for on both daggers are elemental status ailment chance score increase and also life leech. Besides those, typical stuff like critical chance, critical damage and so on are sought after as well. Thanks to both of my daggers having elemental status ailment chance score increased by a lot, that is by 300%, my freeze chance is at 17.4 even though my wisdom is very low. At level 55, 6, 7, 8 or whatever or so, your tree should look something like this. Going down the ranger path, we have this node called covered operative that increases dodge chance score by 100% after taking a hit. With this build and such high dodge chance, every other hit that we would take will actually be a certain dodge now, thanks to this covered operative node. Then we go down this projectile damage and melee weapon damage path that leads us eventually to backline raider that increases attack speed score. Attack speed score is not important for most of the skills that we are using, but it is important for Slayer's Flurry and auto attacks. Next path that we need to take in the inner circle is the red tree path that eventually leads to the wild card that increases critical hit chance score. We depend on critical hits mostly because of the node called Merciless Lethality from Assassin Tree. It increases critical hit damage by 100% but decreases our overall normal damage. Next to this, we also need these dodge chance upgrades that eventually leads to clandestine execution that is good against bosses when they are solo, after we have cleared all their ads. Purchase this upgrade called Paranoia as well to reduce required range. In the middle circle, we're gonna go down the Ranger path that increases projectiles damage, dodge chance, and eventually leads to Archeon's teachings that increases number of projectiles. Two of our skills use projectiles, so this is very good for those particular skills. These are Evasion and Phantom Blades. Purchase these two upgrades as well. Next to this, also go for increased projectile damage nodes that you see over here. This is very useful. Red tree from the middle circle is the Warmonger tree because we can increase attack damage by significant amount through some of these nodes, and that also leads to Feast for the Crows that increases global life leech. Next to global life leech, purchase also this one that increases life leech even further. Next node should be this one that increases damage for each nearby enemy within 4-meter range. You can also use this upgrade, although I'm not sure what is this supposed to mean. The explanation is rather vague, so I'm not sure if this is worth it or not. I did not use it, but it's up to you. Now we go to the outer circle. In the outer circle, we go down this path that increases critical hit chance score even more, and it gives us intravenous neural cord that increases attack speed by a significant amount after scoring critical hit. This works well with auto attacks and Slayer's Flurry. From there on out, there are a couple of possibilities. I would suggest first going for this particular ranger tree called Exorcist and the skill Branded Burst that reduces damage taken per tenet point. This works well with dodge builds such as this one. From this whole tree there are so many awesome minor nodes that you can take, so definitely spend some of the points, but do not take any of the major ones. Major ones are not worth it in my opinion for this build. We can go down this path that eventually leads to Furious Appetite, that essentially switches how willpower and rage work. Next to that there is an upgrade called Frenzied Blows that increases damage 2 times for every skill used when rage is over 750, but also cost is doubled. This is great for evasion skill, but other than that it's not really that fantastic for this build because besides Slayer's Flurry and evasion we do not have anything that uses rage. Slayer's Flurry also depletes rage meter quite fast, so being over 750 will be a rare occasion. From there we can go down this path that eventually leads to a node called Flurrying Flames that also works well with Slayer's Flurry and auto attacks. We do not depend a lot on resistance scores, so benefiting from higher life leech and attack speed is okay in my book. Another path that we can take is from here all the way down to this ranger tree called White Arrow. Purchase these frost damage upgrades that eventually leads to Hungry Stalactite. Didn't really test this, but from the tooltip it can lead to 30% increased damage with piercing projectiles, which we do have. From there you can go to acute tracking as well, that gives you cold-blooded points every 2 seconds up to maximum of 10. Each increases damage by 6%. Basically, the longer we are in combat, more of these points we get. We do clear enemies really fast, but then there are some type enemies that are hard to kill fast. In that case, acute tracking is a good choice. From the inner tree, I would also advise going towards these red upgrades that help with rage management, and also to this upgrade called Second Wind. It helps with health regeneration when we get to low health. That's essentially it for the passive skill tree. Besides the ones that I have advised, there aren't many large nodes that would work well with this build, so I would stick more with those minor ones that would improve dodge chance, attack damage, projectile damage, and so on. First skill is Wings of Ishmir. Upgrade that we want here is this one. Buff for each enemy hit on landing. This could be attack speed, more damage, and so on. This one increases damage dealt in the area of effect on landing. How this works is that damage buff actually follows you. It's not in that area specifically where you landed. So this is a good upgrade. Besides that, we have Bird of Prey that inflicts stun on enemies on impact. Stun chance is 100%. Remember that node called Persistent Hunting that increases damage by 25% to stunned enemies? Well, this is why we went with Bird of Prey upgrade. The last one should be Rippling Impact that creates damage dealing shockwave upon landing. A little bit of extra damage. Dusk Shroud upgrades that we need are Leaps and Shifts that increases dodge chance. Shadow damage increase after dropping a smoke cloud is nice because of the evasion skill that does shadow damage on its own. Friendly territory is a must. Cursed enemies take more damage. Then I went with also Lapse in Focus to break any crowd control effects, reduced rage cost, force shield regen, and reduced cooldown. Slayer's Flurry should be all about the damage. Definitely take Flashing Blades, but remember to recast the spell, don't just hold it then. Because if you recast it, it's gonna use more rage, but it's gonna do more damage as well. This upgrade creates some projectiles that also benefit from all the projectile upgrades that we've made. These two would be must ones, the others go for whatever you wish. Phantom Blades is a very powerful ability that should be upgraded like this. Increase its damage, reduce reload time, 1 additional charge, more damage increase, damage dealing trail, and increase critical damage. Do not go for the last upgrade because then these projectiles will explode and not go through the enemies. This is a bad upgrade, at least for this build. Last skill is Evasion, which is fantastic offensively and defensively if you upgraded it like this. Definitely take Boiling Ink, more rage the better for us. Additional projectile. Bomb leaves the damaging area of effect instead of inflicting a slowing effect. And increased weapon damage. This is how it all works together. First we jump in with Wings of Ishmir. That grants us various boosts through damage or attack speed depending on what the other buff gives us. Upon landing, enemies are stunned and we also do a little bit of damage through the shockwave. Now we put down Dusk Shroud to inflict everyone around with a curse. Now we use Evasion to lay down some projectiles and get out of that spot. These initial projectiles will benefit from additional damage because of the cursed effect put upon enemies and possibly if they are stunned or frozen. Now finish off everyone with a couple of Phantom Blades, and usually you are now stuck with only one tougher enemy that we can finish fast with Slayer's Flurry. All the other things go off cooldown in about 5 seconds, so be prepared to use them then, while Phantom Blades are being recharged all the time, and rather quickly at that. That's the whole deal with the build. As you can see, it clears fast everything that it needs to clear. I hope you have enjoyed the video, thank you for watching and stay tuned for many more builds.